Our next speaker is Charline Norgrove, and she will talk to us about the Pic du Midi Observatory in France. Come on down, Charline. We'll get you out with us as well.
I took a trip to France a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, and part of the trip was a tour with a MWT Associates tour. Some of you are probably familiar with that. Peter, has gone with them. It's a tour group that does astronomy-themed tours. And we went to Pic du Midi Observatory in France, which you can see way at the top of that mountain. The story of this observatory is really remarkable. It's a story of perseverance under extreme difficulties. Okay, this is about the trip. On all of these tours, there's an astronomy expert along with us on the tour, and this time it was Robert Noye, who was the former editor-in-chief of Sky and Telescope. We spent about a week, just over a week with him. He can talk about anything. He went from gravitational waves to how Pluto was demoted. And you name it, he can talk about it at length. He's a wonderful speaker. I've given his name to Paul Delaney, because Bob said that he would love to come to Toronto and he'd do it at his own expense. He has friends here that he can stay with. So I'm hoping that maybe he'll appear next year sometime to give us a talk on who knows what. So, okay, so third slide. This is just a remarkable picture. And I changed my date on my presentation to 2017 because of this. Because this just was taken at Pic du Midi 10 days ago by Damien Peach. And this is what he posted about it. They seem to think it's the sharpest ground-based image of the planet ever obtained. And he says it's a testament to the exceptional seeing conditions at the observatory. He was impressed because Saturn was just 24 degrees above the horizon when he took the pictures, and he could still get images when it had dropped to 17 degrees. It was still excellent images. So this was done at Pic du Midi. Okay, so we started out in Toulouse, up in the upper right-hand corner there, and took a bus down to, is that clear?
Yep. Yes, that's good.
It's not clear here. Over to near Tarbes on the left there, and then down to what's La Mongie. And Pic du Midi is just up the hill there. La Mongie is the largest ski resort in the French Pyrenees. Okay, just wanted to mention that the elevation of La Mongie right here is 1,800 meters, and Pic du Midi is 2,877 meters. So that's a 1,000-meter climb. No roads, cable car. So I used the word evolution in my talk, and that's what I'm going to talk about. It's sort of like this. Okay, it's not far from rocks on the right to briefcase and suits, which I'll mention later. Okay, so over the years, Pic has been a site for all of these things. It started out to be a site for meteorology, and it's worked its way through all of these things. It's now primarily astronomy and tourism. Here's what it looked like in 1878 when the first stone was placed there. So it's pretty primitive. Here's what it is now, 2017. It's a multi-purpose facility for astronomy, scientific studies, radio transmission, and tourism. I'll have some better pictures. Is this really clear to everybody? Yeah. Okay, it doesn't look clear to me. All right. Okay, we're not going to go through all of this, but I put the date 1851 on here because that's when the dream started. That's when Dr. Kostelat wanted to install an observatory at Pic du Midi. He put up a station at his own expense on Soncourt Pass, but an avalanche destroyed it. Then a group of people got together for the Ramon Society to study everything about the Pyrenees. And in 1873, they established a temporary meteorological observatory in the pass. There were two men that were fundamental to the development of this observatory. Denan Souti was the research guy, the engineer, and Bossanat was the fundraiser. Both important. I thought this was interesting. Nancy started staying there during the winter, but in 1877 it had extreme cold up there, minus 30, and he almost died. And he and his two aides had to leave the station. It took them 16 hours to descend a trip that would normally take 3 hours in summer. So this is just kind of a little aside, but even though I put 1851 on there, it actually started in 1706 when an astronomer from Montpellier decided to go to Pic du Midi to try to study the solar corona during an eclipse. So this has a long history here. A couple of other little asides, just so you know what these guys were facing. The path up from the bottom up to the top has 7 to 12% grades. And it still exists. It's now used by shepherds and to transport equipment. That's how they get major, heavy, really heavy equipment up to that summit. Okay, so this is a photo I took out of the cable car. This is the path and the Lake Onset. So down there, coming from down here, winding up this path, it's steeper than it looks from here. This right here, you can see some of the ruins from the original settlement from the late 1800s. So I'm up here in a cable car. Okay, here's the two guys that were so important in establishing this observatory. Okay, here's an etching I found that was depicting the retreat of those three men during that storm. Okay, so they constructed a habitat up on the top so that workers who were working on the observatory could live there. And then in 1878, the first stone was placed that you've already seen the picture of. In 1882, I think this was interesting. Two observers from Paris came to watch the transit of Venus. The weather was so bad, they were unable to bring their equipment all the way up to the top, so they stayed at the building down in the pass. However, on December 6th, the day of the transit, the sky was clear at the summit and cloudy at the pass, so they didn't get to see the transit of Venus. But this was when the first tentative real astronomical activities commenced in 1882. This is probably worth talking about because plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Cost overruns. Okay, they thought it would cost 30,000 francs, ended up costing 248,000 francs. They only had 200,000, so they gifted it to France, who took it over, and it became the National Observatory of France. And its first director was Vaucenin, and the Nansudi was the honorary director. So cost overruns all the time. And here's just some photos. Here's when the first stone was placed. These are just I think that's 1885 up here, an etching of what was up there, mainly the habitat for the workers. And I don't know when this was taken, but it's some more buildings have been constructed at this point. Okay, how did they do it? This was in 1875 or so. Observatories at 2877 meters, that's about 9,000 feet. The nearest village is 26K away, and it's at 550 meters. The intermediate point at La Mongie is 1,800 meters. It could only work during the summer, only accessible on foot, eventually with mules, but not until 1927. The great danger from lightning strikes in the summer. It could only work in the summer. And they needed provisions for those staying over the winter. So they did it. So how did they do it? They did it with men. These are the porters with their backpacks trudging up that mountainside. In winter, they went up 2 or 3 times a week to bring provisions for the people up at the top. One trip took from 5 to 8 hours. We heard a story when we were up there about one guy in the summer who was really fit. He would make up to 3 trips a day up that mountain and back, carting stuff up there. Okay, soldiers. I'm getting ahead here a little bit, but in 1906, the telescope for what you'll see, the Bayeux Dome, was transported from the base of Pic by 20 soldiers. There were 22 crates weighing between 3 and 800 kilos. After 1 month, they had transported the crate only to the pass. They had to leave them there over the winter, and then the telescope didn't arrive until the next September, almost a year in transport. Mules. And starting in 1927, there was a track that was open, and they went up once a day. Each mule could carry 100 kilos. They carried up all the coal, 2 tons of potatoes, what it claimed, wine, bien sûr, of course, wood, potable water, and other provisions. So that was real progress to get that track open. Excuse me. Emile Marchand became the second director of the observatory, and he wasn't satisfied with the inferior instruments they were using. Here's another little aside here. He did have a rudimentary telephone line installed between Pic and the village of Bagnères. The connection was poor, so they resorted to Morse code. The line was susceptible to weather and sheep. And it was made of copper, which was stolen. Same thing today, what can I say? People like copper, I guess. So, 1900, Benjamin Bayot decided to install a real telescope up on Pic. 1906 to 1908, they constructed the dome and installed a 50-centimeter equatorial telescope. All materials and equipment were brought up by foot along rough paths. Weather was bad, observers refused to go, so it was mainly the son of Benjamin, Jules, who used the telescope, and his work there won him a prize in 1924. In 1909, the Bayot telescope was utilized to formally discredit the Martian Canal theory. Okay. So there's a picture in April of the dome under construction. All this snow. I guess they didn't have Mel and the National Guard to help them out with that one. So here's just a couple of pictures of the construction in various stages. Here's a postcard I came across and found. It starts kind of down here. You can see that there's just a big mountain of rocks there. So by here they've got the foundation built, and by here they have the dome on the foundation. However, they have a landslide. By here they fixed that. And here it looks like it's reasserted itself. But this is a later picture because the radio antennas weren't installed until about 1930. 1914, war. Marchand died. The observatory was left deserted except for one person. Part of the terrace collapsed. There was a catastrophe. However, it united people to try to preserve and renovate these buildings. Astronomers weren't enthusiastic. One said that it should be closed. However, in order to save Pic, Lauser reoriented the work toward geophysics and scientific research, and this continued for over 14 years. And then in 1927, the track opened, so the equipment could be brought up in the summer. Mr. 5 here. 1930 was another turning. Bernard Leo invented the coronagraph, with which he observed the sun's corona. He liked it, put it at Pic because of the transparency of the sky there. That's a picture I took of the coronagraph that's there right now, but that's pretty much what it looked like. They almost closed the observatory yet again because they couldn't find anybody to direct it. But Jules, the son of Benjamin, found this plan insupportable, agreed to be the director even though he was already 63 years old. So he undertook an ambitious program of renovation, including a cable car and electricity. Okay. 1939, war again. Bayot persevered. France was defeated and humiliated, and but this galvanized him and galvanized the French. His thought was, quote, "Our country needs to show that its genius and influence have not been extinguished." And so the period from 39 to 47 was very productive, thanks to the French government, who agreed with Bayot. So they built 6 national observatories, 2 private ones, a high-power voltage line, a high-voltage power line, and using the telescope, observation of the moon's surface indicating a fine covering of dust. Here's a good story. I'll try to make it short. Bayot wanted to upgrade the 50-centimeter telescope. He couldn't find something to borrow, but when the 41 opposition of Mars was imminent, they found a 38-centimeter one to use, and they made excellent observations of Mars in 1941. Leo thought about the 60-centimeter objective at the telescope at Paris Observatory. However, its focal length is 18 meters, 3 times that of the 50-centimeter at Peak. So Baillot and Leo fashioned a reflector-refractor after the work of a Swiss astronomer. So the existing scope had 2 tubes, one for the 50-centimeter reflector, one for the 23-centimeter refractor that's used as a guide scope. They took out the partition between the two and knocked out and got bearings for, and 2 new objectives were ordered. And I think what's remarkable to me is that this work occurred during the fall of 1942 when southern France was occupied. They surmounted incredible difficulties of production, communication, and transport. And the scope was used until the early 1960s to do planetary work primarily. And here's just some photos of people using the telescope from 1909, 37, 56. So it was into the early 60s. Okay, I think I'm going to try to pass across this one. This was a proposal for an experimental telescope. They were innovative under all these circumstances that they were facing. This was going to be domeless, rigid tube with a mirror of steel. They had feasibility studies done by Messier, but problems occurred after the war in 1944. They could get no materials, and the country was essentially paralyzed. So the end of the war put an end to the project, which was probably just as well. But I thought this was interesting. The boss of French astronomy decided that no good images could be obtained at high altitudes. And he wanted to develop a competing site. Okay, 1952, this was the real turning point. A cable car was installed and constructed. This marked the line, and I'm going to quote Emmanuel Dabouche, between before and after, between those who had known the heroic period when it took many hours of difficult climbing to reach the summit, and those who arrived up there in a suit and tie and with a briefcase, as if they had just stepped out of the subway. So after 1952, research really exploded. So here's the cable car. That's what it is right now. It's not the one they put up then, but the one that's now. It goes on a come-and-go principle. One goes up, one comes down. It's like this. 45K an hour, 15-minute ride. Car holds 45 people, but I don't know about. That's what they say. We had 25 in the car when we went up, and I wouldn't have wanted to put any more in. There's one intermediate transfer station where you change cars to get up. The maximum height above ground is 350 meters. That's a long way down. The cars can be equipped with a 1,500-liter tank for carrying water to the summit. All the water comes up in a tank for showers, drinking, everything. So there's a picture I took out the window of the cable car on the way up. The scenery there is just spectacular. Here's a few photos taken on the way down. So there's the cable car hanging there above the chasm. So if you're afraid of heights, you probably don't want to take this trip. Okay, more photos from the cable car coming down toward the station. The scenery is just spectacular there. I can't say enough about it. Okay, so things moved fast after 1952. Other telescopes were installed, and the television to France and building and mass were completed. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I primarily want to talk about in 1963, the 1-meter telescope was constructed for lunar mapping. And in 1980, the 2-meter Bernard Leo telescope was completed. And in 2000, the observatory was opened to the public for the summer season for the first time. This is what it looks like today. That's a nice sunny day. Okay, so what's it like up there? Cold. It was nice when we were there, but it snows, falls 8 months of the year. 30% less oxygen. It's 9,000 feet, 2,800 meters up. Big floor area, 10,000 square meters. 5K a corridor. I think it was 1K to my room. We stayed overnight up there, so the complex is built on 6 levels, and I was on level 4, down. More. They've got transformers and generators at the top, fully functioning, up-to-date everything. Water treatment, firemen, emergency beds for lots of people, a complete modern pharmacy and hospital facilities. In 2005, there were 108,000 visitors. And the visitor contribution, 3 million euros a year. Expected to increase with all-night business. So I tried to find my room. I leaned over the rail and was trying to find my room. My room is right down there. Room with a view. Okay, so this was the 16 of us in the group that went up there. But the room, there's accommodations for 27. Included in all this is a 4-course gourmet dinner, breakfast the next morning. So what does it cost? €339 single, $449 double. I suspect Melita, who is our tour leader right here in the turquoise, and here's Bob Noya right here. I suspect she probably got a deal because there's 16 of us and it was a strongly related group. It's worth it. This is my room, simple but adequate. Room with a view. Those windows opened. I had fresh air at night, fresh cool air at night. Fancy bathroom. 6 rooms shared a bathroom. Toilet, fancy shower, fancy, everything really nice and modern, clean. And this was the view I had when I got up the next morning. It's really nice. Okay, this is just a couple of pictures of views from the top. Scenery is just wonderful. You're on top of the mountains there. Okay, so facilities, equipment, and such. I'm only going to talk about one meter telescope, which is dedicated to the observations of the solar system, and the 2-meter Bernard-Leo telescope with a new generation stellar spectropolarimeter. I put this picture of the bezel in here. That's there. I didn't take a picture of that because that's what we're studying the surface of the sun. Biodome was reassigned to become part of the museum in 2000. The interesting fact is that the observatory is good because it's close to the Greenwich Meridian, not far away. And here's what it looks like today. This is the Bernard-Leo telescope right here. Take a look at how it's constructed because that's important. It's away from everything else and it's high. This is the government building here in tower, and the 1-meter scope is not marked here, but it's this one right here. Okay, this building, it's a government building. You can't get anywhere near that. It's military, aircraft, telephone, television, and weather going in there. So what else does it have? Spies. That's what we were told anyway, is that they're listening to you. Okay, so here's the 1-meter telescope. So that's a picture I took, and we did have, it was foggy down around there in the morning at some point. It came and went, but and then it was gone once the sun got up. So this was installed in 1963 and funded by NASA, used to take detailed photographs of the surface of the moon in preparation for the Apollo missions. Later on, they used this telescope to analyze the atmospheres of Mars and Venus, to predict that those planets had no life. The photos at the beginning of this talk, taken by Damien Peach, were taken with using this telescope. Okay, so the Bernard-Leo telescope. So it's built on top of a 28-meter column, 14 meters in diameter, and off to the side to avoid wind turbulence affecting the seeing of the other telescope. It's the largest telescope in France. Okay, so 16 of us got a private tour of the telescope. Open the door, and they let us in at the bottom of that. We had to climb all the way up. First thing we see is this. how to respond in case of a terrorist attack. So that set the tone there. So there's the big telescope. I didn't have a wide enough angle lens to get it with my camera, so I borrowed one from the internet. These are a couple of pictures I took. I got the mirror, and I think vaguely up here is the secondary mirror. I took this picture because this was July 7th. There's snow inside that dome, all around. Yeah, it was cold in there. Okay, so Narva, I could not find out what this stood for. I tried. It's an instrument. Narval in French means the unicorn of the ocean, the narwhals. But this is the only astronomical facility worldwide dedicated to stellar spectral polarimetry, studying stellar magnetic fields. This is the instrument right here. And if anybody's interested in how it works, I can tell them afterwards when I get my cheat sheet. It's a twin to the CAFH-1, so it allows coordinated observations between this one and that one over a period of 24 hours. Okay, we're almost done. Sunset. We had a beautiful, beautiful sunset, July 6th. And I have some photos. I think I couldn't pick just one, so I'm just going to rush through about 4 of them. Okay, after the sunset, we've got a little sliver of a moon there. And then we turned around and we were going to go over to another terrace toward the north to do some little bit of observing, and this was the sunset there. And here's a good way to see the clouds which are below you, which stop people from observing at lower elevations. We did a little observing on the terrace with a big dog that they brought out belonging to an amateur astronomy association called T60. They have permanent use of the 0.6 meter telescope, and they use it for public outreach. So we had a good evening looking at the nice clear sky on top of that mountain. So that's all I have. I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions? What?
I just want to say the photos were excellent.
Oh, thank you. Okay, it looks blurry from over here.
They look great from over
Okay,
there.
good.
Fantastic.
Anything?
Here, Charline. So I want to know how difficult or easy it was to get there. You may have said it, I missed it. Can you repeat that? How did you get there?
Well, we drove from Toulouse in a small bus. Yeah, and we got to La Mangie, which is at the base of the peak, and then we rode the cable car.
Oh, the cable car.
Right. Oh yeah, that's the only way you get up there unless you're taking equipment up on that track.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Pic du Midi, the tallest peak in the pyramids? I
No.
guess, related to that, why did they choose that one out of all the other mountains in the first?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe it's because the valleys and the passes were more amenable to getting up there, although I don't know because there are no roads up there. So,
What's the name of the touring company that focus on astronomical science?
yeah, there are lots of them. The one I've gone with for years now is called MWT Associates. It's usually fairly small groups depending on where you're going. You know, if you have a big thing like an eclipse, there'll be lots and lots of people, but if something like this has lesser interest, so there were only 16 of us, including the tour guide. Bob?
What struck me was the absence of a helicopter pad.
I
I would think that would be a relatively modest investment.
Yeah, no, they have one there. Yeah, I didn't show it, talk about it. Yeah, because of that government building, you know, and emergencies, they have, you know, full access to that. Yeah, that was a good point. I didn't show that. So, okay, Rushes?
You said the 0.6 meter telescope was run by an amateur group?
Yeah,
Did you guys have access to that?
No, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. Not that, and that's why we drug out the Dob, because they had some repairs they were doing to the .6. And we just happened to be unlucky at that point in time. That's what they do with the people who come up and spend the night, get, a star show. It's not bothering. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.